All right, we are about to finish off our building the shell for our portfolio, and we're going to finish that off by inserting some text and content inside the footer. Now, the reason why we're doing that underneath this module, building the shell, is because the footer is going to be the same on every single page. So I thought it would be easier to include this section underneath the building the shell module. So we're on 3-7 formatting the footer. Let me show you an example of how this is going to look. I'm going to toggle over and we're going to look at Pierce's portfolio. And down here at the bottom of the page, this is what we're going to insert. We're going to insert a copyright, all rights reserved, with a copyright symbol, and then you're going to put your name in there. And the name itself, you notice as I hover over it, you notice that it underlines. And this is a link that will open up an email, your default email program that's downloaded on your computer to send out an email. So let's get started. Let's toggle back over to Dreamweaver. And we're going to start this off in the source code. Now, in the last few tutorials, we've started off building our styling or starting our shell pieces, our divs, in the cascading style sheet. But we're going to actually start putting our stuff into the source code. So make sure that you're on the source code on your index.html page. We left a little bit of a space between our div opening div ID footer and our closing div tag down here at the bottom. My line is on line 26. You want to have your cursor inside that opening div ID footer and the closing div tag. Okay, I'm going to tab over to provide a visual indicator that this piece of text is inside of this div tag. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a paragraph tag. So I'm going to open up a left caret, and then I'm going to type in P, and then type in a right caret. So that's our opening paragraph tag. And then I'm going to immediately close it just to show you kind of how this works. So I'm going to shift left caret there, and then I'm going to type in a / and it's going to complete that tag for me. So I have the opening paragraph tag there, and then the closing paragraph tag. And then I'm going to place my cursor right in the middle. And this is where I'm going to type in my all rights reserved text. Let's spell reserved correctly there. And then I'm going to insert the copyright symbol. Now, the copyright symbol is a special character. So in order to insert the copyright symbol, I need to insert that as an HTML character. Now, we've already done this somewhat before up in here when we inserted the space in our content area. We're going to do the same procedure to insert the copyright symbol. So right after all rights reserved, I'm going to type in the ampersand symbol, which is the and symbol, by hitting Shift 7, and you'll notice that my code hint pops up. And when I type in COPY, you'll see that the copyright symbol pops up in our code hint. So I'm just going to hit the Enter Return key to finish that out. I'm going to pop back over to our design view here to see how that looks. So right now it's all the way to the left. We haven't styled this piece of text yet. We're going to style that in a minute and position it in the center and do a couple other things. But I wanted to show you how this turned out. We have all rights reserved with our copyright symbol there at the end. Okay? We're going to jump back to code view again. And after that closing paragraph tag, I'm going to place my cursor right after that. And I'm going to hit the Enter Return key one more time. I'm going to type in a left caret P and then the right caret. And then I'm going to do the same thing as we did before the previous line, and I'm going to close it right away by typing in a left caret /. Then I'm going to position my cursor again right in between that opening and closing paragraph tag. And then I'm going to type in my name. Now, the next step, we're going to actually pop out of code view and do the next step in design view. It's going to just save us a little bit of time to do that, and it'll make sure that our code is exactly right. So we're going to pop back over to design view and click on that button, and I'm going to highlight my name that I just typed in, and then down in the link box I'm going to type in my email address. Now there's another way to do this by just inserting an email link, but we're going to do this by just typing it into the link box ourselves. So I'm going to type in mail to, all one word, colon, and then I'm going to type in my email address. I would like you guys to use your student email addresses, so your last name, student number at district6.org. Okay, and once you type that all in, hit the enter return key, and when you do that, it'll create a link on your name, and not just any link, it creates an email link. So when a user clicks on this link, what it's going to do is open up their default email program to start sending or to create an email. I'm going to pop back over to our code view to show what just happened here. You'll notice that it added a little bit of a line of code for us and a new tag, a new element inside of that paragraph tag that we just created. So you'll notice there's my name right there, and sandwiched inside of that is this ahref line, followed by, after my name is the closing tag of that ahref tag. So all links, anything that's a hyperlink, is an A element, and followed after that A element is the file path that directs the user or connects the user to that link. So in this case, this is mail to colon, so that's creating a default command to open up the email program to send an email to this address. Okay? So this is the entire content in terms of what's going inside the footer. Now we want to make it look good. And to do that, we're going to do that in our portfolio main CSS style sheet. But before we do that, I want to point out one thing. And that is that we have this p tag right here. So in order to change or make or to give styling to the text inside of this footer, we need to know what elements we want to change or what elements we want to style. And we're going to start off with the p tag. And the p is inside this div ID of footer. This is important when we go into our style sheet. So I'm going to click back over to our style sheet. And if you remember, we left off with the ID of footer. And so after that closing curly brace on line 42, I'm going to hit enter return a couple of times. And remember, we are in the footer. So I'm going to start typing in the same ID footer. And this will make sense to you in just a minute. And then I'm going to hit the space bar and type in a P. So remember how just a second ago I said we are targeting the paragraph element, the paragraph tag, inside of the ID that we created called footer. Okay? Go back to our source code and look at this, how this works. There's our paragraph. Okay, and we have actually two paragraphs in there, so we're going to change both paragraphs at the same time because we're addressing both these p tags at the same time, because any p that we use, any p that is inside of our footer will be affected by the changes that I make, and it's inside our ID called footer. Okay, this is called a compound selector in our style sheet. And then click back over where we have an ID of footer and a tag of p. This is called a compound selector, and it's really what it's doing is we are being uber specific about which element we are targeting. So we are targeting the p tag inside of the ID footer. So I'm going to open up a curly brace after the p there and hit the enter return key to start my styling. And in terms of the styling that we're going to do for this, the first one is padding. And I always try to keep my style, the values and properties that I change, I try to keep them consistent in terms of the order that I start with. So you'll notice that in the above IDs that we've done previously, we do width first, and then we move on to margin, and likewise. So I always try to keep my properties, where I place my properties and what I style first, in order, just to stay consistent, so I don't have to find them later on if I just kind of put them in there willy-nilly. So the first one we're going to change is padding, and so padding is one of those things where it's spacing. It's one of those things that I like to put in and adjust first. I start typing in padding, and we have padding bottom, left, right, top. Well, we're going to do this shorthand, and we're only going to change the padding on the top and the bottom values. And if you remember, I'm going to type in a colon here, or hit the enter return key after padding, okay, and hit the space bar. You remember that in shorthand, the first value affects the top padding value, or if it's margin, or if it's border, whatever it is. And if the top and the bottom are the same values, then I can get away with just typing in the same value here for the shorthand, and then the second value is for the left and right. If it's also the same, then I would type in the same value. Now what happens, say, if you have the same values for top and bottom, but say your left and right values are different? Well, then you would have to type in all four, right? So the first value would be your top, the right, or the second value is your right, and the bottom, or the third value, is the bottom, and then say your left value is the one that you want to be a little bit different, is the fourth value, is the left value. The fourth value is the left value, okay? But so you'll see if I have all these are the same. So see how that works? My first value is the top, my second value is the right, bottom is the third, and left is the last. So see how those are the same here? Here's the top, here's the bottom, here's the left, here's the right. So if I take those last two values away, that's the shorthand. So this represents the top and the bottom, the 5 pixels, and the 0 represents the left and the right. So I'm going to hit enter return, and the next one that I want to change is going to be the text alignment of this paragraph. Now that's how you align text, is using text align, not font align or just align. It's called text align. So I'm just going to select that from my drop down menu there and start typing in center, and select that, and then end that statement with the semicolon. Don't forget the semicolon, and then hit the enter return key. And then last, we're going to change the color of our text. Now here's the thing, color for font is not font color. You can type in font color, but it won't necessarily recognize it. What you want to do is actually just select color. You notice that as I type in font, there is no such thing as font dash color, okay? So where you want to be at is just type in color. So color is for font color. Now my text is already black. By default your text is black, correct? My background that I chose for my body is a pretty light gray. So really I should stick with black. And I am going to stick with black. But if you chose a dark color, say like a really dark blue or something like that, I recommend using a lighter color, like white or light gray or like a red or a yellow or something of that nature. I'm just going to go ahead and show you and pick black, and I'm going to keep it at 000, and then end that statement with the semicolon. So I'm just going to leave that like that. I don't necessarily have to put that in there that way, but I'm doing that for you to see what we need to do to change the color for the footer P. So those are the 3 properties and values that we're going to be changing. So we're going to hit enter return and then close that out with a right curly brace. We're going to pop back over to our source code and then click on design so we can see what happened here, how this changed. So you'll notice that all rights reserved is still in black, and you also notice that my name is in blue still, although our text is fully centered and there's a little bit of padding there between the top of the paragraph there. Okay, so there's a reason why my name is still in blue and underlined, and I'm going to pop back into code view to show you why. So remember we talked about this A element, correct? So this A element is the link element that creates this as a hyperlink. The A element is nested inside of the P and takes precedence. Its styling takes precedence over the styling of the P. The A element has its own default color and text style values. All links by default are blue and underlined. And so that's why when you look at this, it's blue and underlined. So to change that, go back to code here real quick. To change that, we need to target this A element. And remember, we got to work backwards, okay? A is inside of P, which is also inside of the div ID footer, okay? So we're going to go back to our Cascade style sheet. And after that curly brace that we just finished typing in, we're going to hit the enter return key again. And we're going to start off with # footer. And our code hinting just shows up, so we can hit the enter return key again. This is pretty handy, by the way, because everything is spelling specific. So if you are a notoriously bad speller, this is a great feature for you, because if you accidentally misspell, say, footer, and you spell it, you forget an O and spell it as fodder, it's not going to style it for you because there is no such element that we've used or no such ID used called fodder. So if you got to be very careful about spelling mistakes. So remember, we're styling the A element, but we also said it's inside of the P element. So I'm going to go footer P A. Now, and I put a space after each one of these. Now technically we could say we don't need to style this as footer PA, but we're going to go ahead and do it this way to show you the specificity of how this works. A is inside of P and P is inside of footer. Okay, so we're going to open up a curly brace after the A and hit the enter return key. Now all we're going to do to this element, this style, is we're going to change the text color, and we're going to change the text decoration that is underlined. So we're going to start with color first, and type in color, and then hit the # to bring up your color wheel. And I'm going to select a nice bright red, so I'm going to move my target brightness or my target color picker all the way to the right hand corner of my color picker in the red. You can pick whatever color you'd prefer. And then hit enter return. So that's going to complete out that color for me as a hexadecimal number, and then I'm going to type in the semicolon to finish out that line. And then next I'm going to hit the enter return key one more time, and then I'm going to start typing in text. And you'll notice that there are a lot of different options for modifying text. And the underline style is underneath text decoration. So I'm going to select text decoration, hit enter return, and you'll notice that we have some options like blink, inherit, line through, none, overline, and underline. The one that we want to select is none, because we want to say no underline for this text. Okay, so hit enter return, and then type in a semicolon and hit the enter return key once again, and then close that out with a right curly brace. Now we're going to double check to see how this turned out by going to our source code, and we don't need to do anything here, right? We're just going to go click on our design view to see what happened. So I'm going to out-click that there so you can see it, and look, my text is red and it's no longer underlined. But if you remember right, I'm going to tab back over to our example here, that when I hover over Pierce's name, it underlines itself. Okay? So we need to do one more thing to our A element, and that is tab back over to Dreamweaver and then tab back over to my code here. Okay, there's nothing here that we actually need to do. Okay, we're going to go back to our Cascade style sheet. Alright, so in order to change the color or change the underlying property when someone hovers over the A element in the P tag in the footer, we need to add what's called a pseudo class. And a pseudo class is essentially an action performed by the user. And there are only about 4 pseudo classes that you can apply. And in this case, we're going to apply the pseudo class of hover. If say down the road you want to add, like more interactivity to your website, where, like as a user does something, your site does something. The pseudo class hover are mainly used for links and give you a little bit of interactivity, but they're fairly limited. If you want to go further with it, you're going to have to learn a little bit of Java and add some event listeners to do that. So I'm going to hit my enter return key down here, and again we're going to the same thing. We are typing in footer and select footer, and we are changing the P and A element, but then to add the pseudo class, with my cursor right after A, I type in a colon, and then I type in hover. Okay, so this is how this works. When somebody hovers over with their mouse on your site on this A element that's inside of the P tag, that's inside of the footer ID, it's going to do something. Okay, so to change that, we need to assign it a different property. So we're going to open up a curly brace and hit the enter return key, and we could do two things. One is we could change the color of the text, which is a great option. For this tutorial, all we're going to do is we're going to just go back to our text decoration property. So select text decoration, and then hit the space bar, and then we're going to select underline. So there, I typed in under, and it brought up underline. Just hit the enter return key to finish that out, and then end that with a semicolon, hit the enter return key once again, and then close that out with a right curly brace. Okay, before we go any further, let's go ahead and file, save all of our work right now. Okay, now here's the deal. If I go back to my source code and click on design, nothing happens. Okay, you're not going to see anything happen, and that's because the only way for you to see if you've done this right is to look at your site either in a web browser or to change this to the live view. Now, there are two main differences between live view and previewing in a browser. When I switch to live view, Dreamweaver renders it as closely as it thinks it will in whatever browser that you may open it in. And the difference here is that when I hover over my name, you see it underlined, but it doesn't do anything. If I try to click on this, it just doesn't do anything. In fact, it'll bring up a little window that I don't need. Okay? If I want to see if this works, I actually need to preview this in a browser. So that's the difference between live view and previewing in a browser. Dreamweaver renders it as closely as it can, but not totally, not completely. So this is handy if you just want to quickly view your site as you're in design. So switch back to design there by selecting the drop down and then selecting design, and it'll go back to the way you need it. Now, if for any reason you find yourself not able to modify or do something, chances are in Dreamweaver, chances are you're in live view instead of design. Now I'm going to preview this in a browser just to show you how this works. My preview button is down here in the right hand corner of my document window. So I'm going to click on this, and you can add preview browsers, if you download those browsers onto your computer. So you could add, like say Chrome or Firefox if you have those. I'm going to preview in Firefox because Firefox tends to be the most reliable browser to preview a site in, and it renders it as the most closely out of all browsers in terms of your design. So I'm going to click preview in Firefox, and it's going to bring it up in a new browser window. Okay? Notice that when I hover over my name, it does underline it, and if I do try to click on it, it's going to open my default email program, which I don't use. Okay? So I'm going to quit mail there, get out of that. So here's where we're at. We just built our whole shell for our portfolio. The next steps is going to be to insert our navigation menu and actually add some links and nav menu items for that. After we finish the navigation menu, we are ready to create the rest of our pages for our portfolio and then start filling in content.